The Knots Company welcomes you back to Focus on Automation, where we explore and celebrate advances that empower manufacturing. Welcome back to Focus on Automation. I'm your host, Todd Youngblood, and today we're going to take a deep dive into sensors and a few of their, to me anyway, quite frankly, amazing applications. The sensor technology has come a long, long way in the last couple of years. To help us understand more, I'm joined by two of the sensor people from Leuze, Mr. Jerred Davis, he's Sales Director East, and Mr. Rod Karch, Safety Product Specialist. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
We appreciate you guys and Knots giving us this opportunity.
Always good to thank our friends from the Knots Company. I know them well. Just to get us kicked off here, I'd like to get a little bit of background on the two of you. Jerred, why don't you start off and just tell us a little bit about how you landed where you are now?
Okay, well, I've been in the kind of automation industry for about 20 years, and most recently the past 4 to 5 years with Leuze. And started with Leuze as a key account manager for our intralogistics related business, which is a kind of a focused industry of ours, and morphed into a sales leadership role with Leuze over the past couple of years. So it's been a great experience. I mean, sensors and the technology is such a dynamic product and things. So every day is pretty interesting.
Rod, how about you? You sound like more of the technical guy. Is that right?
You could say that. So I started at Leuze a little over, it's 3.5 plus years now. And my background is definitely in technical type of resource for Leuze and other companies that I've been with. I've been very much like Jerred. I've been in automation for 20 plus years. I think it's more like 25. I don't want to give my age away, but I think about 25 years. And so when I started at Leuze, I actually started in customer care. It was one of those that it's such a good company. I wanted to be on board. That was the only role that they had open for me at that time. So I did get into customer sales, eventually moved up to technical support, and then finally got into this product specialist role for safety. And it's been great. I love Leuze. I love their products, and I'm very happy to be here. So I do appreciate you and the Knots Company having us live today. So I appreciate that.
Oh, it's our pleasure. Hey, let's talk a little bit about Leuze, the company. Rod, could you take a first shot at just giving us a quick overview?
Yeah, Leuze it's a very interesting company. It's a family-owned company. They've been around for quite a long time. The history of Leuze is one of, it was actually a company that got involved in the textile industry. They were very big in the textile industry in Germany, and they actually ended up getting into the optical sensors because they needed a optical sensor for some of their machines. They were actually building textile machines, and they needed an optical sensor. So they ended up designing one and building one. The Leuze family did. I don't remember the exact. Do you remember the name, Jerred?
No, not exactly.
The developer of the sensor?
No, but I think it was around 1963. The textile company had been in the family, I think, for like 100 plus years. Wow. It was interesting to see kind of as the times changed with textiles and where they're being manufactured to this organic transition into sensors, the optical based sensors. So 1963 was kind of when that first sensor was invented for their own use.
And was that first application, that first sensor, was that safety oriented, or was it geared at something else?
It was not. It was the stories that I've been told. It was related to the threads that made the textiles. They needed to be able to detect the quality of a thread if there were knots or bad places in the thread itself. So the early photo eye, they probably weren't called photo eyes back then, could kind of detect that imperfection in the thread.
Interesting stuff. Keep going with the history. I mean, it's really, we both talked about how the technology with sensors is still advancing so rapidly.
I think this is kind of, where Leuze came up is once they figured out, okay, we have some ability to design and these optics and these sensors and things like that, they started partnering with other companies, other OEMs, other machine builders, and doing the same thing. You have a problem you need to resolve, or you need to have a solution for that problem. We'll take a look and see if we can create a sensor. So it was very much solution-oriented design of the original sensors and products, as opposed to just, let's create a generic photo eye or a generic sensor to do a multiple different things. It was very focused. We had a lot of partners still to this day that's how we started.
Rod, whenever I talk to someone that's not really familiar with the world of manufacturing, and I use a phrase, light barrier, you get funny looks and questions about, is that from Star Wars or something like that? Talk a little bit about what is a light barrier? Why do I care? And what's its value in a manufacturing application?
That's a really good question. So light barriers are any kind of and typically optical sensor put into realistically an array. So you have a lot of optical. It can be a few. It can be a lot of optical sensors. The sensor is a transmitter and receiver. You're sending light out, basically, usually on an infrared spectrum, over to an eye for the most part. So the transmitter shoots a beam of light out. The eye, or the receiver, receives the light, and based on that, it knows that there's a clear path or not a clear path. So a light barrier is nothing more than a number of these eyes in line, and what they're looking for is a blockage of these light paths for the most part. And where they're really used commonly would be any machine that you're doing some type of somebody might be working on very closely, and they're sticking their hands in and putting parts in and taking parts out, or doing some kind of a process. You can potentially use it as a safety barrier, so that when a machine won't ultimately actuate if somebody's hands are in this light barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And so typically a light barrier can be a light curtain. It can be which is a lot of these eyes, a light grid, which is a fewer number of these eyes, or even a single beam device. And they can be used in standard applications or in safety applications. Leuze has a number of these products available, and we've been making them for many, many years, so 30 plus years.
Jerred, you may have a better perspective on this as the sales guy, but I put myself in the position of a plant manager, and I've got all kinds of pressures, particularly budgetary pressures.
Right.
And if I look at, okay, I care about my people out on the plant floor. I do not want them to get injured. I'm not some monster. However,
Right.
I do have all these budgetary pressures. Can you provide us any insight in just a financial business case to say, hey, you need these light barriers to protect your workers, and here's what it's worth in dollars and cents?
If we're looking at it strictly from a dollars and cents standpoint, I mean, what's the cost of an injury? What's the cost of a human life? Worst case scenario. I mean, it's priceless, right? So to not implement safety sensors and safety solutions on machinery, on conveyor lines, on things like that, it's just unacceptable nowadays. So if you're looking at a cost from that standpoint, it's a no-brainer. I mean, I think we unfortunately see a lot of times where there'll be accidents and things, and reactive safety audits and things to accidents where, okay, now the customers, or now these plant managers are saying we got to get serious about safety, and it's really too late at that point. I think every machine builder, every end user, has to really consider these things up front to make sure the cost is not high from an injury standpoint.
I got to tell you, and it's probably the little boy in me still. Every time I walk through a plant floor that's got robots and cobots deployed, I'm mesmerized by it. I could stand there and watch those things for literally hours on end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Or what's the role of sensors with those? I mean, obviously safety is I don't want some robot whacking my workers. Talk a little bit about the applications in and around robots and cobots, particularly the cobots.
Yeah, maybe I can start, Rod, and then you can kind of maybe take it to a more technical level. But for sure, I mean, robots, the energy and force that even some of the smaller cobots have in them can certainly be dangerous depending on what they're doing. I mean, if it's a welding process, if it's a cutting process, certainly those things can be unsafe. And, our safety products, whether it's light curtains or light barriers, as you call them, can kind of protect a load and unload area from somebody entering in when that robot's working. The other product that is extremely popular for robotic cells, whether it's a fixed robotic cell or AGV, is our safety light scanners. And it's basically a laser array that will protect a programmed area around this robot. So, if anybody enters that area when they're not supposed to, it'll shut everything down quickly. But I don't know, Rod, was there anything you wanted to add to that, maybe on the cobot or AGV side?
It's really important to have the right product. The nice thing is with Leuze products, we have, as Jerred was saying, we have our safety laser scanner, and it's one of the best optics on the market. Leuze is sort of one of the first with optics. Is we were the first to spin the actual optic to give a better resolution, angular resolution, more points that we read. It makes it a safer product ultimately, and Leuze was one of the first to do that. In times past, most manufacturers would utilize a mirror to reflect this beam, and Leuze decided to shoot the beam straight and receive the light return for this time of flight optical sensor straight, and that's a first. So anyway, our safety scanner, the RSL 400, is what I would term as one of the safest on the market. Some of the other products.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to jump in. What's the negative about the mirror? Or let me ask it the opposite way. What's the positive of
Sure, that's a great way.
What's the positive of not having the mirror in there? Why do I care?
The problem, yeah, well, the problem with the mirror is that the mirror, when it reflects this light, as a mirror spins, it basically will orient in different the light beam in different positions. So it actually lowers the resolution, and it gives an odd shape to the light beam for the most part. So it doesn't have quite that repeatability of a beam that's being shot straight out and returned straight back.
I think some of the practical benefits of that, our area safety scanners not only have the best resolution at the longest range, 8.25 meters is kind of the safety range. The measuring range, if you use them for that, goes well beyond that. But in addition to the range, they're extremely resistant to dust and debris, in an environment. So if you have an industrial environment that you may have some metal shavings, sawdust, things of that nature, the resolution of ours and the performance of ours actually give a better performance to resist, false trips and things of that nature, in those environments.
You've both mentioned AGVs now in some of your comments, and it strikes me that that's got to be, I think, significantly more challenging to implement, a sensor-based safety system. What kind of challenges do you run into with the mobile applications?
Well, there's definitely a couple. I mean, when you're talking safety and navigation for AGVs, nowadays you'll hear terms like natural navigation, and the sensors for these are typically or can be, all in one. So like I'll say one of our top end safety scanners also has some additional natural navigation and measurement features built into it. So basically you're not only monitoring changing safety fields as the AGV is moving around, you're switching fields depending on the speed of the AGV, depending on whether it's turning a direction, you may be changing the field dynamically, but you're also taking constant measurements, very high resolution measurements of the environment around you. So that AGV can then be programmed to avoid obstacles, to stop at certain distances, maybe not safety related, but stop at certain distances, to even dock, with a conveyor or something of that nature. So there's a lot of challenges, and, going along with the lines of the spinning, the rotating optics, the better the resolution, the higher the measurement quality, the better results you can get, with those AGVs and AMRs.
I'm just thinking in terms of speed is something that, throughput is something that a plant manager is always thinking about. So if I have an AGV, for example, that can go, and I'm going to pick numbers out of the sky, 10 miles an hour versus 5 miles an hour, I've just cut my transport time in half from point A to point B. How fast can these things go safely? Rod, you're probably trying to speed them up all the time, I'll bet.
Well, I'm not, that's one thing I'm not sure about exactly with how fast. How fast is going to depend on obviously the safety distance and the calculations that are required by the codes. But we can achieve some of the fastest speeds, obviously, with the RSL 400 in lieu of products that are out there that are inferior.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that speed and safe speed, how quickly something can stop. If you're talking about a small AGV or AMR with a cobot on it versus, I mean, we get into really large AGVs that are carrying, airplane parts and chassis and things. So it might be considered slow carrying that airplane chassis, but if depending on how fast you can stop in things and how your safety sensors perform, that can make a huge difference.
One of the things I've always struggled with, and not just with sensor technology, really with any kind of technology, it's one thing to understand what this piece of high tech does. Talk a little bit about, and again, from a plant manager's standpoint, how the heck do I figure out what sorts of applications should I be looking for? What are the high payback ones? What's the whole process of how I figure out how to apply this sensor technology most productively?
Well, Rod, I think I may let you address some of our safety services or the typical safety inspections and things that somebody would do in a plant. If a company does not have their own safety engineer or safety certified, like a TUV safety certified engineer, we would always encourage them to engage with engineering firms or companies that do have those guys, and just to kind of educate themselves and learn, what at least a minimum needs to be done to make things safe. Rod, you can discuss, I think, the certification process that a couple of our engineers have and you're going through as well to kind of help our customers with that.
Yeah, so part of what Leuze strives for in the U.S. is we want to be sort of a resource for, I mean, obviously products, but also for services. And one of our, from the safety side of things, we do offer a lot of safety services. And that would include risk assessments for machines and applications, safe stop measurement for the most part that we can provide on machines, which is something that needs to be done on a regular basis, along with inspection, and then verification of machines when it comes to the standards and the codes. You need to perform certain verifications annually at commissioning as well. We do offer these services, but part of the key for a safe application is going to be, do I have the right products for the machine? Do I safeguarded the machine to protect the employee for the most part? Are the stop times in the products where they're located, are they proper? Does the stop circuit function properly? And these are all verification tests and simulations that we can provide with the right testing instruments for the most part. And we do on a regular basis for customers. If you want to make sure that your machine's certified, we can obviously help with that, or there are other resources that can do that. But the nice thing with Leuze, as far as from the product as well as the service side, is that we sort of provide that full support. We can help you to safeguard your device, not only from the code standpoint, but from the product standpoint as well. So we try to be a complete fit when it comes to safety products as well as standard product. If you were looking at it from a management type of perspective,
right.
we're sort of the one-stop shop for the most part.
Jerred, you had something to add?
Yeah, no, and I think from a plant manager perspective or an engineering perspective, for an end user, it's sometimes you don't know what you don't know, right? So a guy may say, well, to make this machine safe, I just need to slap some safety light curtains on it, but it's a little more involved in that. And certainly these engineers can do some of these calculations. But if you don't know how, you need to know, okay, how tall does my light curtain need to be? How far off the ground can I mount it? How far from the machine do I need to mount it? That safety distance, that's based on stop time. That's based on, does it need to be hand safe, finger safe, or just body safe? So there's a lot of things that if there's not some expertise in house, whether it's us or somebody else, companies really need to seek out that expertise and see what needs to be done to make machinery and systems safe.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point, that you don't know what you don't know. That's frightening.
No, for
especially
sure.
when we're talking about safety.
No, and we run into it all the time where, people again just think, let me slap a light curtain in here, let me put an area scanner in here and be done with it. And there's a little more to it than that for sure.
I'll throw this question out to either or both of you. Any particular application or scenario that one of you's worked in that's just a fun story, a cool, interesting, unusual application of any of this technology?
From a safety light current standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, I was kind of focused on intralogistics, which is material handling, conveyors, automated storage and retrieval systems, and things of that nature. And we have this awesome product. It's called it's a light curtain called SPG, Smart Process Gating. Basically, what that means is sensorless muting. And not to give a course on muting light curtains, but picture a conveyor line, right? You have to get product on pallets in and out of a warehouse, right? So the conveyor, you don't want people jumping into the warehouse, into the automated warehouse, or climbing over the conveyor to get in. So you have to have a safety barrier there, light curtains there. But you also have to be able to mute those or turn those on and off when pallets and loads are going in and out. And we had a very prominent automotive company warehouse that we were working with one of our customers with, and they had everything from cages, with parts and pieces in them, to stillages, to bins, to pallets with small items on it, just an infinite variation of things going in and out of this automated warehouse. And part of the problem there is you have to be able to sense what is on that pallet, on that skid, in order to be able to initiate a muting sequence, right? Mm-hmm. And so our SPG system, basically they couldn't figure out how to correctly mute this thing and make it safe. But our SPG system, the way it works is more or less all the beams within that light curtain. If any one of those beams are broken and the muting sequence has started, it will correctly mute and correctly turn off the muting and turn the safety light curtain back on when it's done. And so we actually solved a real problem that this company was having with this product. And not only that, it saves on some costs from the muting sensors and some of the technical difficulties with aligning muting sensors and things like that. So that one's one that sticks out to me.
That's cool. Rod, do you have an example?
Yeah, I just want to say that SPG that Jerred was talking about is another Leuze first, because it's something that Leuze developed and actually had certified through TUV, but it's not, nobody else has that product. It's unique to Leuze. So I just wanted to mention that. Sorry, Jerred, that was a great story. For me, some of the recent applications that have come up have been around cobots and cobots, and there's so many different names for them now. They're coexistent or collaborative. So they have a bunch of different words for them. But ultimately, I had an application where a customer was looking at one of these type of articulating arm robots, and ultimately he needed to do sort of a specialized function, in which is very common. It's having entering a reduced speed mode for the robot, or a pause. So you ultimately, if you're getting close to the robot, you want to slow down. If somebody's away from the area, they want the robot to speed up for production, right? We want to hurry and have whatever it's doing and get it done quickly for production. For instance, on machining centers like CNC machines, there are a lot of customers are using these articulating arms on these machines, and multiple machines at that. So what we had is we needed this slowdown. So if somebody actually enters the area, comes close to the robot, they want to slow it down. And then if they get too close, you want to shut that robot down completely. You don't want to jeopardize somebody with the power that these articulating arms can put out. So we utilized an RSL. The nice thing about our scanner, our RSL scanner, is the fact that we can have two sets of OSSDs on it. And what we did is, with these protective outputs, these safety outputs, we're able to put in two different fields, one that can be monitored simultaneously, one for the slowdown and then one for the shut off of the robot. And it was as simple as that, taking those outputs from our safety scanner directly into the robot controller, and it resolved the customer's problem. So this was a really interesting application that I was involved in, and it's nice to see our product solve the issue for them.
Very cool. Very cool. I've got one more question. I'm going to throw this out to both of you as well. What next? What's coming down the pipe the next 2-3 years?
Well, I mean, I think as for safety scanners and safety products like this, I think they're only going to improve, resolution, range, things of that nature. They're just going to get better. How they interface with, like Rod said, how they interface with the robots and the cobots and things of that nature. We're going to see more collaboration, I guess, with that as well. I mean, even today, there's things like a safety radar that we now offer, and it's just finding easier ways and better ways to implement safe solutions that are not as intrusive to the process. Not hampering the efficiency of a process. I don't know, Rod. What are you thinking of?
Well, communication. It's all going to be about communication, and I think that we're looking on the horizon at things like safe IO-Link or IO-Link safety. You can hear it both ways. The proper way to say it, I believe, is IO-Link safety. So I believe that's going to be a real large drive for communication to different safety products for the most part. We can either provide a little or a lot of information back to maybe a data acquisition or some type of a home-based type of PLC system. So I think that'll be giving diagnostics on safety products. I'm not sure necessarily if that's going to be the new brand of safety out there, but that is one thing that I would say would be on the horizon, along with smarter devices. So going and talking about Industry 4.0 out there, you hear a lot about it, or the IoT, those type of discussion points are going to lead to more information, and it's going to be, what can we do with this information on a larger scale. So I think that's on the horizon for the most part.
It's going to be fun to watch all this roll out. I can't wait. Jerred Davis, Sales Director East for Leuze, and Rod Karch, their safety product specialist. Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to share your insights. This is some just really, really cool stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, Todd. We appreciate it. It was fun.
Thanks for having us, Todd.
That wraps today's episode. On behalf of my guests, Jerred Davis and Rod Karch, and our sponsor, the Knott's Company, I'm Todd Youngblood. Talk to you again soon.